Greetings, it's Jerry White, the Executive Director of URI in Accokeek, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. And today is my 2-year anniversary at URI. And I want to thank you all for this opportunity to have served and want to reflect a little bit on what I've been learning and what I'm most proud of that we've achieved together. And then jump into July with our updates, which are many. So apologies in advance for the extra length this month, but so much is going on as usual. And I wanted to make sure all of the GC, SAC, Foundation, and our staff are up to date on where we are and what's going on. So with that, I'll start with a couple slides of reflection. So bear with me as I share the screen. So yes, we're going to have our 2-year anniversary highlights. Big notes on the Honduras trip. As we know, the ongoing strategy process and other things like calling for at-large trustees and SAC members and some new learning opportunities and trainings, plus much more. So bear with me as I jump right in. So first of all, what do I think about when I think about URI? Well, I fell in love with URI. Its mission, its people, and potential. So wow, what a group this is and what a vision we have. So you remember when we were all in Kigali and one of the leaders of the Truth and Reconciliation and Gacaca process told us that God is not joking. God is not joking with us. And then we needed to take our mission and vision very seriously. So that's what I do, and that's what we do. And we took that exhortation and we brought it into all of our work every day. So let's go through some things I'm proud of. I am proud of absorbing and learning so much from each and every one of you on my visits to the regions, 8 of them, and to get to know hundreds of CCs, trustees, individual members. What a blessing. I am super proud of how we've recentered our focus on our core threefold purpose and our promise to the world. Our purpose statement is central. I am super proud of how the URI network has adopted, adapted, and run so quickly with our new health approach to violence prevention. This is so important. And I'm proud of our commitment to shared learning, adaptation, and training for our growing number of CCs and individual members, creating an app and a platform to monitor our vitality and learn together. And I am super proud of our truly talented staff who work so collaboratively and so hard with our dedicated trustees. So Pamela, Diana, Karen, Ruben, Alice, Maria, Muse, Bhavya, and let's not forget Bill Swing, Sheetal, Sally Mahe, the senior leadership of the staff and our senior advisors. I am proud of each and every one of you. What a privilege to work with you. And lastly, here on this slide, I am proud of how we are working quickly, envisioning and co-creating a powerful and adaptable strategic framework for URI 3.0. So look out 2025 to 2030, we're coming for you. God is not joking with us, and we are not joking with the world. So what are some things I'm looking forward to? I am looking forward to completing our leadership transitions this summer and the ability to begin a new chapter at URI after 2 years. I'm looking forward to welcoming all the new trustees and the officers and working with the full global council of URI, as well as the SAC, the foundation, and our many partners. I'm looking forward to healthy and paced growth as we mobilize new resources to fulfill our promise in this troubled yet beautiful world. I'm looking forward to bringing on new funders, SAC members, at-large trustees who actually enjoy fundraising and appreciate it, like me and our intrepid founder, Bill Swing. And I'm looking forward to, well, I should say my wife, kids, and friends are looking forward to me not talking 24/7 all about URI's complex challenges and conflicts as we enter this new phase of stabilization, growth, and global impact. Phew. And I just want to thank the leadership of Prita Bansal, the chair of the Global Council, Kulin Sangvi, our treasurer, and all of our outgoing trustees. I wish to acknowledge your many contributions prior to you stepping off the Global Council at the end of August. Thank you all. So let's jump into some of the other things we have been getting to this month. The Honduras Indigenous Gathering, unprecedented, historic gathering of Indigenous, 30 representatives, 15 from Central America and the Caribbean, and 15 from communities in Honduras, all working together on new ways to prevent violence and build community. This was really important this July because as we worked in circles, it was really empowering and letting the Indigenous lead and let the Indigenous train by Indigenous, for Indigenous, about Indigenous problems and the violence they, in particular, have and continue to face. So we've been empowering peers through the learning tools and the training provided earlier this year in the health approach to violence. And this was adopted and skillfully co-facilitated by our trustee, Rosadelia, and the co-founder and former trustee, Rosalia. Amazing work adapting all of our tools to Indigenous communities and getting enthusiasm and more interest in forming new CCs in Central and Latin America. Congrats. So on Lempira Day, July 20th, it's the national holiday in Honduras that's dedicated to honoring the country's Lenca national hero, Lempira himself. And we had the 30 Indigenous participants who came together to meet and thank our supporter, Jessica Sarowitz, who was with us and her team, as well as Doris Gutierrez, who's the president delegate of Honduras, the equivalent of a vice president. And they ended all the ceremonies in celebration and dance after presenting their quote unquote manifesto to me and URI that included special requests going forward for timely follow-up and true partnership as promised from the beginning and founding of URI. Super excited to continue this arc and growth. Really exciting too that Maria, on her first trip to Honduras, networked and started our first CC in what was known as Honduras, a virgin country for URI, where there was no CC. And it was really meaningful to visit this first CC. And the director of COEAS, which is a plant nursery on the edge of a mountain, the director, Yessi, was shown here below with Maria, but two people over, smiling big. And she and her team of volunteers are trying to save a mountain, the sacred mountain of Triquilapa. I probably ruined the pronunciation, but it's right behind the iconic basilica in Tegucigalpa. And the mountain is known as the lung, one of the lungs of Honduras, because it's a vital source for oxygen and water. And this ecosystem is now facing threats of deforestation and fires and commercial real estate development and poor resource management and degradation. So dangerous that even one of the guardians, as part of our CC, was actually beaten to death in a church after he advocated, Miro, a hero, advocated for ecological preservation and protection of the sacred mountain, where Indigenous have lived and where sacred miracles have happened in the appearance of Mary. So this mountain on the right is right behind the basilica, and Indigenous and partners don't want it developed and torn down or deforested. And you can see why, you can imagine. So showing courage in our first CC, working against ecocide and wanting to end violence against Mother Earth, Pachamama, it makes me super proud, and we stand with them. Also, you've been hearing in our strategy and from our impact assessments that actually we do our best when we mix up and engage youth, women, and Indigenous leaders. So on this trip, we were on the case. How do we recruit them? Where do we find them? So we went out, Maria, myself, and friends went to the largest business school in Honduras, the National University, and we engaged a class of 40 marketing students, super smart, to assess their interest and their feedback on URI messaging. And several of them expressed their intention on forming new CCs, and they all had a strong interest in the topic of violence prevention, whether domestic violence,
sexual violence, gender-based violence, as well as violence against the environment. Later on, we also went to visit a rural community center run by the Lencas with the support of Cure Violence, Guadalupe Cruzion. We met women community leaders, part of a group called Muriel Paz, and we were discussing again the health approach to violence, what can be done, male toxicity, masculinity in macho cultures, as well as all the participants from different generations, young and old, calling for follow-up training and continued support and capacity building to prevent violence against women, the indigenous, and the environment. Taking time to go deep and go inside. Now, it was a real honor for me to participate in a morning fire ceremony with our 30 indigenous leaders. You can see it in the photograph on the left. And I have true gratitude, see that picture on the right, of all of the RLT members, outgoing and incoming. You know who you are, super proud. And it was super fun to celebrate. And a big shout out to our glue. Maria and Larissa glued us together with logistics, translations, facilitation, coordination, you name it. Super proud of how the team came together, and trustees and staff and our partners really celebrated this time. All right, another topic. Speaking of growth in CCs, with a new one coming on board in Honduras this year, we now have about 50 CCs that have been approved or in the engagement process this year in 2024. So you'll see some of the differences from the region, 50% growth this year compared to 2023, about the same time through July. And the regional rankings show that we're really seeing, where we have clusters and growth, it grows more. So Asia continues to lead the way, an exemplar, followed by Africa, and then Latin America, and then lagging a little more is Middle East and North Africa. And then we have so much opportunity and possibility and potential in Europe, the multi-region, Southeast Asia and the Pacific, and North America. So we hope to get all of them up and running with a focus on growth in the coming year, just as we've planned in our strategic co-creation. So as we look over the years to compare, you can see in the beginning of URI, boom, 68 CCs, but then 13, a slowdown, and then 52. So there's sort of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 5 steps, 2 steps back. And then we get to COVID, as you see over in 2020, a real dip back down to 29, some stagnation set in. And then in taking on this new job, we've really pressed again for growth that we need to resume. So in 2023, we had 46 new CCs. And this year already, as I mentioned, we have 50, like halfway through. And so we're expecting to climb up to another 50 to reach maybe a record of 100 CCs in 1 year at URI 2024. We're coming for you. So excited to see this resume growth and energy. And with each new CC is a revitalized spirit, an excited desire to learn, to join and be trained, and to actually offer their gifts and community building and connection through interfaith cooperation. So well done all. We are growing again. So let's see. All right. We are in the strategy process too. So I'm super proud of how far we've come. We're sort of 2/3 of the way in, and we've been doing our grand town halls and the working groups that are integrated with trustees and CCs and SAC members, stakeholders from across our whole network. And right now we're at the phase of trying to consolidate our findings and synthesize the best for the 3 priority areas of focus. Optimizing our network growth and connectivity, developing our learning and action platform and ecosystem, and launching an interfaith campaign to heal and cure violence. So now we're at the phase of drafting the descriptions and preparing to send them out to all of our regionals to ground truth them with conversations with the RLTs, the CCs, and integrating the best feedback to prepare it for approval this fall. We're a little bit, not much, maybe a week behind to pull together, to synthesize all the best ideas. And as you know, it's been a very transparent process. You can, if you want, listen to the recordings, go back to old town halls, There's mountains of paper to review, but right now we are in August, starting August, looking to integrate the strategic framework and pull together the best of our ideas so far. Super exciting. I won't go into this, but it's the timeline and draft calendar. If you're looking, again, with the next town hall, August 8th, come one, come all. And when we come to August 8th, we always have those reminders, as you know, URI on our process and sort of the rules. We come prepared to participate, to understand the aims and the process, and have done the learning and understand the activities that led to this co-creation. We listen in order to learn, always remaining respectful and curious. And we engage stakeholders, again, from all parts of our ecosystem to think and dream together. We honor and make room for all voices, focusing on substance and not personalities or roles. And we challenge assumptions. We actually debate in URI, and we seek the healthy consensus on what would best serve URI 3.0 going forward. So get ready. August is a big month for consolidation and synthesizing our best ideas. Here's the first one, the summary page, optimizing network growth and connectivity. As of today, my 2-year anniversary, this is moving forward. In each case, you'll have an overall orienting statement, and then you'll have 3 main goals for the strategy and key initiatives to support those goals. And we'll have principles for each of those initiatives. So strategic priority number 1, you see here. Strategic priority number 2, you can go back and continue to read. You'll have the full packet soon. Anyone can read and offer feedback. And strategic priority area number 3, a campaign to end violence, also available for your inspection and contribution. Come one, come all. All right, so now that's all the good news. Now we have some challenges that we're facing as an organization, and it was bound, it's not abnormal in a transition to face this, but also after 25 years, trying to revitalize and get ready for our next 25 years. So when we came up in June, as some of you may have heard, we were facing a little cash flow crisis. I wouldn't say little, because it was a $500,000 donation we had expected and it was pledged for May, ended up not showing up in May or in early June, and we were facing circles of light. So we had to turn to the foundation, call on the treasurer and the finance committee and the foundation and the EC and our chair and say, listen, we actually need to make payroll and cover all the expenses for our program grants and our circles of light. We need a donation, or actually a loan, better put, for $300,000, which was approved in a timely way. So we put forth the rationale and it was approved and came through from the foundation. And we would expect to pay that back by the end of this year. So as you may or may not know, I'm also the CEO of the URI Foundation. And the foundation manages the funds, the URI funds, our strategic reserves, and the endowment. So this is about $13 to $14 million. And the foundation has the ability and the mandate to issue loans or make grants in addition to managing our investments. So they can make grants and loans for our URI operations as long as it's mission related. So it turns out this summer we're facing another challenge, not just a delay in a grant. This time it looks like a $250,000 donor may not renew. They had renewed last year in May. This year they look like they're taking a pass. So this month we're going to make a second request that we ran by the Finance and Budget Committee this week, and we'll go to the EC and the foundation for a $280,000 loan or grant from the foundation to cover all the program grants and stipends and payroll through August and September. This is sort of a dry patch for fundraising this year. And with this little gap, we need to make it up. So in that case, we have enlisted the talent and smarts of Barbara Shannon, an at-large trustee, and SAC board member Bob Coleman, who many of you also met in Kigali. And they completed just a deep dive and a preliminary assessment to make a presentation to the EC, recognizing the need for fundraising prioritization and how do we bolster finance and development efforts and capacities going forward. So we're on the case with trustees and experts, and we are looking at ways that we can plan through this transition, the end of the year, as well as start growing again in 2025. the big picture is that by the end of the year, we still show growth. We're going to be over $4 million as we were last year. So we are seeing growth over each year, but at the same time, it's the cash flow, which is a challenge. When the grants come in is very important, in particular to URI, and we have realized the danger of not planning for the exact timing when something like a $500,000 check or $250,000 check comes in from one of our long-term supporters. So news, we're learning. And so some of the recommendations coming in, we've already been working on, like in July. So we saw this emergency in June. We jumped on the case in July. And already we have the Treasurer and the Finance Committee proposing that we explore how we're going to set aside a larger strategic reserve for situations such as this. When there's a cash flow shortfall, how do we actually borrow from our foundation and be able to draw down from some of our resources that we have invested with them. Steps have been taken also by Pamela as Director of Finance to establish a bank line of credit for URI, which we never had before, or we had before, but had not had for several years. Steps are taken to clarify each and every six-figure major donor. So these big major donors who have been friends of Bill Swing, our founder, and often members of the SAC, big sustainers, people who have given like millions of dollars over the years. We have to make sure which ones are in, which ones are moving on, and which ones are multiple year, and when exactly is the timing of their major gift pledges, because we can't leave this to chance, as we just learned. So also recommended steps are being taken to draft and discuss and propose what's been missing, which is an agreed policy, procedure, and understood protocol for requesting or accessing URI Foundation managed resources or strategic reserves. It's not an idea to just gut those reserves. It just means we start to look at creative ways where we can work together. So the staff, myself included, are working very closely with the Treasurer, Poulin, the Finance and Budget Committee, the EC, and the URIF Foundation to determine the right combination of loan policies, grant-making policies, and future investment in finance development and communications, or what we call storytelling capacities, to make sure that URI is better known and we market our great work to the world. So more detailed development plans will be developed, and we will keep you posted. I just wanted you to know that as we face this sort of, transition in understanding our sustainable financing, that you would all be aware of this and that we would be able to work on it together. So in terms of our scenarios between now and the end of the year, as I said, the staff, as usual, is already managing conservatively. So we have cash flow statements for what we call Plan B, not the original budget, but basically how to trim costs month by month as needed to not get way ahead of revenue. So we've deferred new initiatives, such as a symposium we were thinking about in India, push that into the first quarter of next year, and then new hires in professional services and travel. So we're able to trim the sails and hold steady. The Plan B scenario, as we call it, also assumes that we will secure another $250,000 from one of our major donors this fall. And then in addition, we have another major donor coming in with $100,000 and another with $500,000 in the last quarter. So we have to get there, end the year strong as we normally do, but partner together with the foundation. So by mid-August, that's this month, we'll be making a request, as mentioned, for $280,000 as a loan or a grant to be determined from the URI Foundation. So we keep refining as needed, and we're incorporating all the recommendations to be proposed or approved by our oversight committees, Finance and Budget, Executive, GC. We want you informed, and the foundation. So this really is pulling everyone together to make sure that we are rowing in the same direction and we understand how to deal with financial crises as they crop up, even when it might just be a cash flow challenge, even if the bigger picture looks positive. So this will focus our attention on developing and recreating a fundraising and development committee needed, and actually re-establishing and strengthening the Senior Advisory Council with people who like to fundraise, as I said, and actually can work in partnership with me, Diana, and the team. Speaking of Diane and the team, we had a successful Circles of Light. And as a fundraiser, we want to thank her and the team who pulled it together. But we're focusing on mobilizing new friends and funds. So as a fundraiser, it didn't net or make as much money as we were hoping, with only about 14,000 in net proceeds. It was a more expensive venue at the SF Jazz. We took some risks, but it also was a truly inspiring event for those of us, I hope you agree, who participated. And the good news, 45 new donors, including some major ones, and some new people on the foundation and investment committees who came out to support us and make a donation. And as a fundraiser, we exceeded last year, and we went past, I think 161 was the number of people we gathered last year. And this year, 273 reservations. We had 38 new people as VIP dinner guests, 172 new people at the general reception. And so a total of 210 new friends introduced for the first time to URI, with our possibility to follow up, fundraise, and deepen their commitment. So that's the goal of fundraisers, is also to develop a community and to fundraise. Voila. So on the other front of fundraising, planning for the future, understanding that URI needed more multi-year six-figure donations. Individual giving is really big in the United States, as you all may know, and philanthropy is really part of our culture and our tradition. But things are being funneled through foundations and donor-advised funds. So that's the trend. So Karen Volker was hired in part as the director of violence prevention and partnership. And part of partnership is engaging institutional fundraising and partners. So foundations such as the Porticus grant that we had. That was one of the first, I think, the URI ever got. We aren't big on institutional fundraising or funding in the past, but in the past 12 months, working with Karen and Diana, we've researched, interviewed, and submitted 9 applications for funding, 8 to foundations and grant-making organizations, and 1 to UNDP. And so we also made a successful bid of $100,000 to a major individual donor to support the violence prevention efforts in Central America, and a bid for a donor to cover the cost, about $30,000 for a part-time partnership that covers Liza Hester's costs. In addition, we've drafted a potential for an award recognition for URI and Bill Swing for another $50,000. We'll hear about that later, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're constantly strolling and doing research and developing proposals for institutional fundraising and foundations, so we can get multi-year grants coming in 6 to 7 figures. This takes longer. This is sort of medium-term strategy. It's not a quick fix, but hopefully we'll be seeing more fruit by the end of 2025 for sure. So more on this, 15 additional foundations we're looking at, 8 short-term priorities, blah, 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 blah. You see some names. It's not to show off, but just to show that we're busy and mindful of development. Fundraising is an acquired taste, I would say. And I want to emphasize that completing our strategic framework process, like knowing what we do, why we do it, and why we are focused on growth and need new investors, it is extremely important. I can't stress it enough, because it will enable us to start to draft and articulate regional and global proposals that are compelling and get the money for our long-term growth. So that's where we're heading. Proud of the efforts, praying for the payoffs. Speaking of other ways to grow, the at-large trustee nomination process is now underway. Thank you, Eric Rue. That's a nominating committee chair. And those people are looking. So the invitation is out to be thinking about expertise that we need for at-large trustees. Those are those who are not elected from the regions, but are nominated because they bring legal expertise, fundraising expertise, communications expertise, or credibility to our reputation, and have experience in governance and have willing to take on this fiduciary responsibility of joining the GC. So those nominations are due by August 6th. Hello, that's like this week. So it seems a little tight. We also can have rolling nominations like come the fall. So if we don't get the ones we need, we can always be on the lookout for great talent wanting to engage with URI. So thank you, Eric and team. And speaking of the learning and training teams, segue, there are training highlights. There's new learning in action series coming out and applications to apply and participate in, one on violence prevention and another on peace building through earth restoration. That deadline is also coming up for August 7th. Maybe it will be delayed by a couple of days, but we have 4 introduction workshops. Also, they've been translated into Spanish, and our URI new app, the beta test, has been completed, and we'll have a gradual rollout over the coming weeks. So as promised, new signature offerings in our Learning in Action platform with upcoming events for August, the Youth Camp, as well as Youth Challenge Month, and a Youth Content Creation Cruise. So thank you, Ruben and Sarah and Wanda and Angie and everyone on the team. I think you've seen the advertisement, so go online, sign up. It's welcome to everyone, individual members and CCs and trustees, whoever wants to learn more. There's the QR code. So that's it. After 2 years, that's a summary for 1 month. And there's always a lot going on at URI, and there's so many ways to be involved. And I just want to express my true gratitude to all of you. I mean, basically, when it comes to such an amazing network and dedicated and devoted trustees and staff that are like dreamy to work with, so smart, people who have dedicated like decades of their life to URI. And our fearless founder, Bill Swing, mwah, we are eternally grateful to you for the vision and for your coalescing leadership. And as we are learning, amazing, like a couple decades of very serious high-end fundraising with friends and donors that have helped sustain us through the years. And we want to honor you and redouble our efforts to actually grow and take on and diversify our supporters so the whole world truly knows about the great and powerful and wonderful URI. So thank you for this privilege of being able to serve. And with that, I apologize for an extra long monthly update, but it snuck in 2 years of pride and what I'm hoping for going forward. So with that, I will sign off and wish you a biento.